that means you need to trade some pieces. And the guys that are eating up the most money on this roster are James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, and Moses Moody. Again, I think Moody is good enough to keep. The other two, on the other hand, their overall attitude, their misfit with this team, it just doesn't work. And now I'm gonna get to reason 4 for why the 2 timeline thing must stop. And it is James Wiseman. Where to start when it comes to this kid? I have nothing against him. Obviously, from a personal standpoint, why would I have anything against a kid who was drafted by the Warriors? It wasn't his choice to be drafted by the Warriors. The Warriors drafted him. From the get-go, this was a weird situation because the Warriors ended up being a lottery team because obviously they lost Klay Thompson and they lost Stephen Curry basically in the same year. Of course, you're missing those 2 guys, you're not gonna do anything. Kind of like how the Spurs missed the playoffs that one year and ended up with Tim Duncan, right? Sorry to break this to you, they did not have a Tim Duncan in that draft, nor did the Warriors have the #1 overall pick. Now, it was a unique situation. The Spurs got a player who was ready to play and dominate in the NBA because he played 4 years of college. He wasn't some kid who played 1 year, had no fundamentals, and no idea how to play the game. It's a completely different situation that worked out amazingly for the Spurs. Anyway, immediately, James Wiseman was a misfit with the Warriors. Why? Because he came into the league interested in ball handling, shooting, isoing in the post, making moves in the paint, hook shots, playing pick and roll. These were his strengths. Unfortunately, nobody taught him how to play defense. Nobody taught him all the crucial things that are conducive to winning basketball. He does not know how to play winning basketball, and that was apparent. After about 10 games or so, I declared him a project because he was. He didn't know how to play the game. He didn't know when to cut. He didn't know when to screen. He didn't know how to set a screen. He didn't even know how to catch the ball at the NBA level. This guy was a certified disaster from a usability standpoint for any team that is trying to make the playoffs. So he ended up being an incredibly raw player to start. Not only that, all the things that he was good at, the Warriors did not need. What the Warriors needed is a guy who had brains, who could protect the paint, who could move his feet, be a lob threat. Pretty simple. Steve Kerr was looking for a Luke Longley kind of guy. He was looking for an Andrew Bogut of sorts. And this is the kind of role that is fit to play the center position for the system that the Warriors have. Something that James Wiseman doesn't fit at all. This was not the right guy for a Steve Kerr system. Not at all. And you have to keep in mind that James Wiseman, #2 overall pick, lottery pick. Lottery picks are for lottery teams. For teams that are rebuilding. They suck, they're trash, they're hopeless, and that's why they're in the lottery, because they suck. They are not competing anytime soon. They are looking to rebuild. They are looking for a piece that can jumpstart their quest to start anew with new talent, and they're willing to take guys that are young, that are not ready to play winning basketball, but develop them into it and help them become whatever they're capable of becoming. That's the kind of team that James Wiseman needed to end up on. He needed an opportunity to grow on his own timeline without the pressure of performing not just for a playoff team, but for a title favorite team with title favorite pieces. He doesn't want to play some fringe role. He wants to become a franchise level player. He wanted to become Joel Embiid. He wanted to become Kevin Garnett. He didn't want to become Bogut. He didn't want to become Longley. He didn't want to become Looney. These are not the things that he was training to become. And yet the Warriors somehow magically think that he's just gonna become that willfully, willingly. It takes incredible character, it takes incredible IQ, it takes incredible selflessness for a player to fit into a Steve Kerr system. Steve Kerr's system is very rigid. It looks for very specific types of players. If you're good at pick and roll as a point guard, you're not gonna make it on a Steve Kerr system because they don't run the pick and roll. The fit is all messed up. This is not fair to Steve Kerr. This is not fair to Steph Curry. This is not fair to the team. And this is not fair to James Wiseman. He was drafted into the wrong situation. And not only that, he came in and showed how unready he is to play at the NBA level in so many different ways. They should have seen it from the get-go. I mean, if I could see it after 4 games, why can't a professional NBA organization also see the same thing? Why do we have to wait this long only to see that he's still a raw project? He should have been off the roster to ensure that the Warriors would be able to keep a guy like Gary Payton or even Otto Porter Jr. with the money that James Wiseman was eating up. If you could get rid of that. Or another piece they could have used last season in the playoffs. Because remember, they were really short-handed even with Otto Porter and Gary Payton. One of those guys get injured. You know what the Warriors did against the Grizzlies in the playoffs? They ran a 6-man rotation because their bench was that unreliable. Meanwhile, the front office, the owner, the coach, they're all talking about, oh, it all worked because we won. Even with the kids on the roster. But they won despite having those kids on the roster. They were not usable. They tried to start Kuminga. It was a disaster. It came to a point where Stephen Curry and Draymond Green had to go to the coaching staff and plead to take Kuminga out of the rotation and put Looney in there. And that's how they managed to win that series. Imagine if they could have used $10 million for a different piece. Maybe a 1-year rental even. Those things are worth spending on. 1-year rentals are worth spending on when you have a championship core and you just need 1 or 2 more pieces to fill the gaps. Instead, they held on to James Wiseman the whole year. Ultimately, they held him over Gary Payton, who literally helped them to a championship, which I said earlier in the video, championships are super elusive. Don't be confused by the presence of Steph Curry and believe that they are easy to win. They are not. But there's just such a lack of sense of urgency from this front office, from this ownership, thinking, oh, we can do whatever, blah, 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 and we're gonna win anyway, and we're gonna be seen as geniuses. It's all Steph Curry. Wake up. It's not you, it's him. And you're taking what Steph Curry and the core have done and taking credit for it and saying things like, oh, we're geniuses because we won, even though we're rebuilding with the kids too. They won despite that plan, and now you've lost more key pieces, and now those kids are not ready, and now your team looks fucked. Wake up, for the love of God. I am simply trying to help you with some common sense.